Today, September 24th, Mars faces Pluto, and none of us comes out unscathed. This is not just any transit, it is a cosmic summons to confront the power you fear and the power you hide. Prepare yourself. Today's energy is not subtle. There are no whispers, no gentle invitations. What we have is a clash of titans happening in the sky and consequently on the battlefield of our own soul. Our personal will, our deepest and most visceral force of action, represented by Mars in its own kingdom of Scorpio, comes into direct conflict with the most overwhelming and transformative force of the cosmos, Pluto, in the revolutionary sign of Aquarius. It is the day when the masks fall by force. It is the confrontation between our personal power and the impersonal power of the great currents of life. This is not a battle that can be observed from a distance. Each of us is being summoned to our own arena. The tension hanging in the air today, the irritation, the feeling of pressure, the urge to break with something, all of this is the sound of war drums echoing inside you. It is the moment when the universe demands your naked courage. It asks us, where have you abdicated your power? Where have you allowed fear to control you? And where have you used your power unconsciously or manipulatively? What we will do together is serve as a strategic guide for this battle, not to avoid it as it is inevitable, but to cross through it with consciousness so that the fire of this confrontation does not consume you, but purifies you. If you are already feeling the intensity in your body, declare in the comments, "I am in this battle." Anchor your presence and let us together learn to transform this war into an initiation. What happens in the sky today is not a conversation nor a negotiation. It is a clash. A square in the language of astrology is an aspect of pure tension, a battlefield where two planetary forces of a different nature are forced into a direct confrontation. The energy demands confrontation. Neutrality is rare today. Indifference also produces a consequence. Today, the two titans on this battlefield are the most powerful and relentless of the zodiac: Mars, the god of war, and Pluto, the god of the underworld and of transformation. On one side of the field, we have Mars in its own kingdom, the sign of Scorpio. Do not imagine Mars here as an impulsive soldier. This is Mars in its most lethal and strategic form. He is the general of secret operations, the surgeon who cuts with absolute precision, the spy who moves in the shadows. His strength is not that of an explosion, but of an obsessive and unshakable will. Mars in Scorpio represents our deepest personal power, our visceral willpower, our raw desire, and our determination to fight to the end for what we consider our truth, whatever the cost. He does not fear the darkness, he uses it as a weapon. On the other side, we have Pluto, the very power of death and rebirth. In the revolutionary sign of Aquarius, Pluto is the force of inevitable transformation. In Aquarius, its focus is the destruction and reconstruction of systems, of ideologies, of social structures. It is the impersonal force of evolution, the giant wave that comes to clear the old world and make space for the new. And it is here that its symbolic image becomes our guide. Pluto is the iron wall of the great currents of history, of the rules of society, of collective ideologies. But it is not a stationary wall. It is a wall that also moves, advancing slowly, crushing everything that is obsolete in its path. Today, these two forces collide. Our personal, intense, and obsessive will, Mars and Scorpio, clashes head-on with the impersonal and crushing wall of collective transformation, Pluto in Aquarius. It is a test of absolute power. Your personal truth against the world's truth, your need for control against the uncontrollable forces of change. And in this confrontation, there is no neutrality. The energy is too intense to be ignored. Today, you are forced into a choice. Either you attack, or you are pressured to transform. Either you become the warrior who uses their strength to fight for their sovereignty, or you become the very structure that is crushed and remade by a greater force. There is no third option. The titanic collision between Mars and Pluto is not a distant spectacle. Today, our body and our mind become the battlefield where this war for power unfolds. The tension generated by this aspect is so intense that it needs to manifest, to find a release valve. And it does so through a series of physical and psychological symptoms that can be uncomfortable, but which are, in their essence, signs of a profound process of transformation. Do not ignore what you feel today. Every symptom is a clue, a map that shows you where the battle for your sovereignty is being fought. The first and most common of these symptoms is a wave of sudden irritation and anger. This is not the common, everyday irritation. It is a rage that seems to come from the depths of your soul. Primordial, volcanic. Small frustrations can trigger explosive reactions. Your patience with inefficiency, with dishonesty, or with attempts at control becomes non-existent. This is the voice of your Mars in Scorpio emerging. It is your deepest will, your life force, refusing to be suppressed, controlled, or diminished. This anger is not negative. It is a fuel. It is your soul saying enough, refusing to continue to tolerate a situation that violates your integrity. This internal anger often finds a target in the external world, which leads us to the second symptom: conflicts with authority figures. Pluto in Aquarius represents the great structures, the rules, the system. Whether it be your boss, a government institution, or even a family power dynamic, your Mars in Scorpio is your individual and sovereign will. Today, these two forces are at war. You may feel an uncontrollable impulse to challenge a rule you consider unjust, to confront a superior, to break a protocol. Situations where you would normally feel intimidated or would keep quiet, today can become the stage for your rebellion. This is not an act of gratuitous insubordination. It is a test. It is the universe asking you, where does your true power lie? Do you obey an external structure that limits you, or the internal authority of your own soul? This confrontation inevitably generates the third symptom: a feeling of being trapped or tested. It is the sensation of a pressure cooker about to explode. Pluto is the force that contains, that presses, that corners us. Mars is the force that wants to explode, that wants to break free. Today, you may feel cornered by a circumstance, by a decision, by a relationship. The pressure seems to come from all sides. This sensation is the prelude to the transformation. It is the old structure of your life being tested to its breaking point. The intensity of the discomfort is proportional to the imminence of the liberation. And when the pressure becomes unbearable, the fourth symptom emerges: the destructive impulse. It is the sudden urge to break something, to cut a tie, to rupture a situation. This is not a blind impulse. It is a surgical act of the soul. It is your Mars life force, informed by the transformative wisdom of Pluto, demanding the elimination of what is false. It is the desire to break the mold that imprisons you, to cut the cord that ties you to a toxic dynamic, to break the silence that sustains a lie. Do not fear this impulse. It is your own healing force in action, destroying what is sick so that what is healthy can live. If you feel this pressure, this anger, this urge to break through, do not interpret it as weakness or as a flaw. Embrace the truth that your guide phrase reveals to us. If you feel the pressure, do not interpret it as weakness. It is the clash revealing the exact point where you are not yet free. Each of these symptoms is a cosmic finger pointing to your chain, and today, it also hands you the key to break it. The volcanic energy of the square between Mars and Pluto rarely remains contained only within us. It needs a stage to express itself, an arena to test its strength, and most of the time, that arena is that of our most intimate relationships. It is in the mirror of the other, in our partner, in our family, in our work environment, that our own battle for power becomes most visible. Today, our connections become the battlefield where hidden power dynamics, subtle manipulations, and unsaid truths are forced to come to light. What was in the wings is dragged to center stage, and the performance can no longer continue. This transit functions as an X-ray for power dynamics. It exposes the invisible architecture of control that sustains many of our connections. Think about your closest relationships. Who has the power? Who gives in? Is the exchange balanced, or is there an undercurrent of dominance and submission? Mars in Scorpio activates our deepest will, our need for a visceral intensity and honesty. Pluto in Aquarius, in turn, challenges all power structures that are not authentic or that do not serve an evolutionary purpose. When these two forces collide, our patience for power games simply runs out. The part of us that was content with a superficial peace in exchange for not having conflict, today refuses to continue paying that price. That is why today's prophecy is so direct and so relentless. Today, any relationship based on control will be forced to show its true face. What does this mean in practice? Emotional manipulation, the use of guilt, the silent treatment, or passive aggression. All these subtle tactics of control suddenly become transparent and intolerable. Your intuition, energized by Mars in Scorpio, can see through the game. Where there was once confusion, there is now a cutting clarity about the other's true intention. Likewise, any dynamic where control is exerted through resources, be it money, access, or information, will be put to the test. Your soul, today, longs for sovereignty, and it will rebel against any situation that makes it feel powerless or controlled. The arguments and conflicts that may emerge today in your relationships are not the problem. They are the symptom. They are the fever that indicates that a hidden infection, that of inauthenticity and control, has come to the surface to be treated. Do not fear the truth that emerges. It may be uncomfortable. It may break the image of harmony you are trying to sustain, but it is the only thing that can lead to real healing. Today's battle is not to destroy your relationships, but to destroy the false dynamics within them, so that only what is real, true, and based on mutual respect can survive the fire. Now that we have seen how the pressure of Mars and Pluto manifests in our mind and in our relationships, we arrive at the heart of the matter. This transit is not just about external conflicts. Its deepest function is to catalyze an internal confrontation, a true cosmic exorcism of our ego. The battles you fight today with your boss, with your partner, or with circumstances are just a mirror, a reflection of the only battle that truly matters. And that is the battle that happens within you. Today, the universe forces us to look at the war that exists between our deepest truth and our oldest fears. Your guide metaphor for this moment is this: it is the day your soul fights against your shadow, and only one can lead. Think about this. Your soul is your authentic self, your life force, the part of you that yearns for growth, for truth, and for sovereign power. Your shadow is the part of your ego that operates from fear. It is your desire to control others, to feel safe. Your need for power that is born from insecurity, your patterns of self-sabotage that keep you small, so you don't have to face your own greatness. The pressure of today's square forces this shadow to emerge from the subconscious, the anger, the irritation, the will to manipulate. All of these are the manifestations of your shadow coming to light, to be seen, and your soul, energized by the courage of Mars and the need for transformation of Pluto, finally sees, I see you, and you are no longer in command. This process of exorcism is not about casting out an external entity. It is about reclaiming your own inner house. It is about taking the power from the parts of you that are governed by fear and giving it back to your consciousness, to your soul. To help you anchor this process, to make this internal choice a real and physical act, let's go to a symbolic ritual. It is simple, but your intention is what gives it power. Symbolic ritual of release. Find a moment alone and take a sheet of paper and a pen. Take 3 deep breaths, connecting with the feeling of pressure or conflict that you have identified today. Now write on the paper the answer to this question. What do you feel is holding you prisoner? Give a name to your shadow. It could be my fear of failure, my need to control others, my resentment for person or situation, my pattern of self-sabotage. Be brutally honest. No one other than you and the universe needs to see this. After writing, look at the words. Recognize that this pattern, this fear, this shadow is not who you are. It is just a part of you that learned to operate from pain. Thank it for the lesson it brought you, for the way in its own manner it tried to protect you. And then, with a clear and sovereign intention, tear the paper. Tear it into as many pieces as necessary. As you do this, feel that you are breaking the power that this pattern has over you. It is not an act of anger, but an act of decision. It is you declaring that the contract with this shadow is, from today on, terminated. Finally, discard the pieces of paper. As you do so, visualize the energy of that pattern being released from your system, returning to the universe to be transmuted. Remember your reinforcement phrase, it is not superstition. It is a physical act of alignment. It is your action in the material world, declaring to your soul and to the cosmos that you have chosen a new leader for your inner kingdom. The ritual we practiced in the previous chapter was an act of reclaiming power. By naming and releasing your shadow, you took the reins of your own strength. But all power comes with immense responsibility. The energy of Mars square Pluto is like liquid fire, like a high-powered surgical tool. In the hands of a conscious being, it can heal and liberate. But used recklessly or reactively, it can cause immense destruction, both to ourselves and to others. This chapter is not about what to do, but about what, under no circumstances, you should do today. These are the safety rules for the battle. The first and most important rule: do not force permanent decisions under the influence of anger. The anger and irritation you feel today are valid signals. They are your system alerting you to a boundary violation or a deep injustice. Honor the message of your anger. Listen to it, but do not let it take the steering wheel. Anger is an excellent informant, but a terrible strategist. Making an irreversible decision, like quitting on an impulse, ending a relationship in an explosion, or cutting a family tie at the peak of this volcanic energy, is a recipe for regret. The function of today's anger is to show you where change is necessary. The decision on how to implement that change should be made later, when the dust has settled and your calmer, more strategic mind can take command. Feel the fury, but do not become the fury. The second rule: do not manipulate or allow yourself to be manipulated. The Mars-Pluto square is the peak of power energy, and the shadow side of power is manipulation. Today, the temptation To use the truths you have discovered as weapons to control, to coerce, or to take revenge on someone can be immense. Resist this temptation. Using your power to diminish another is the quickest way to poison yourself with your own strength. Likewise, be hyper-vigilant to attempts at manipulation by others. Today's energy makes people more prone to using power tactics, guilt trips, and emotional blackmail to get what they want. Your task is to remain in a state of radical integrity. Refuse to participate in any game that is not transparent. Your sovereignty lies in your refusal to play power games, whether they are initiated by you or by others. Finally, the third and perhaps most dangerous trap: do not ignore the signals of your body. The worst thing you can do today is try to suppress this energy. It is to feel the anger boiling and pretend that everything is fine. It is to feel the pressure building and try to hold on tight. The energy of Mars and Pluto cannot be destroyed. It can only be transformed or repressed. And when it is repressed, it turns against us. Unexpressed tension can manifest as excruciating headaches, digestive problems, unexplained muscle aches, or a devastating insomnia. Remember this as the physical law of the day. Energy is like fire. If you try to pretend it is not burning, you will get burned on the inside. Your body is asking for a release. If you do not give it a conscious release valve, like intense physical exercise, screaming into a pillow, or visceral unfiltered writing, it will find a way to release it on its own, and usually not in a healthy way. Do not suppress. Transform. If you have crossed this day with consciousness, if you have faced the pressure, if you have looked at your own shadow and refused to be a victim of your own fury, then you now arrive at the other side of the battle. And it is here, in the silence that follows the clash, that the true prize of this transit is revealed. The square between Mars and Pluto is not just a test of resistance, it is an initiation. And every initiation, however brutal, confers a new power upon the one who passes through it. Today's energy does not just destroy, it above all reveals. And what it reveals is your most authentic strength, stripped of all illusions. Think of this. Before today, a large part of your personal power, Mars, might have been invested in external structures or in false power dynamics. It could have been tied to the need to control a relationship, to the search for validation in a career, or to the maintenance of an image that no longer served you. The relentless pressure of Pluto today came to demolish these external structures, and in the midst of the rubble, you are forced to find what is unshakable, what cannot be destroyed, because it does not depend on anything or anyone outside of you. It is here that you discover your true power. It is not the power to control others, but the power that comes from your resilience, from your truth, from your ability to survive the fire and to rise from the ashes stronger and purer. That is why the phrase that defines today's reward is so paradoxical and so true. The gift of Mars square Pluto is brutal, but liberating. By destroying your illusions, it hands you the key to your next level of inner strength. The key was not hidden in a distant treasure. It was buried beneath your own lies, your fears, your self-sabotages. Today's confrontation was the act of forced excavation that compelled you to find that key. The clarity that emerges from this battle is the clarity about what true power is and what was just an imitation. True power does not need to shout. It simply is. It does not need to control. It influences through its own integrity, and this leads us to the final victory, the only one that truly matters. The temptation, on a day of so much anger and confrontation, is to focus our battle on the external world, to try to defeat the other, to prove that we are right. But that is the final trap of the ego. The real battle was never out there. And your power phrase for today seals this truth. This is not the day you defeat others. It is the day you defeat yourself. Your victory is not in defeating your boss or in winning an argument. Your victory is in having observed your own anger without becoming it. It is in having felt the impulse to manipulate and having chosen integrity. It is in having looked at your most frightening shadow and not looking away. By doing this, you have not won a battle. You have mastered a part of yourself. And this inner dominion is the only power that no one can take from you. The battle ends. Today was not an attack, it was an initiation. If Mars is the sword, Pluto is the forge. Today, your sword was tested in the fire of your own truth. The pressure you felt was not to break you, but to purify you, to burn away the weakness and reveal the strength that exists in your core. The final choice was always yours. Whoever retreats without learning loses the chance to be free, and that has a real cost. Whoever crosses through becomes the master of their own destiny. Like this video and share it with those who also needed to cross through the fire today, and declare in the comments your choice, your victory, your power. I am reborn in the fire. And don't forget to subscribe. The power you have forged today needs to be mastered, and we will continue this journey together.